Are you looking to feed your family delicious meals without breaking the bank? Me too. Join me as I take you through a full week of budget-friendly recipes that are easy to make and sure to satisfy everyone at the table. Even my 2 toddlers, who are aged 2 and 1, absolutely love this food. And so no need to worry about picky eaters. I'll also include exactly what I spent, so stay tuned for that at the end. I'll try and put all of the recipes in the description so you can keep coming back and referring to them. Hello, welcome here. My name is Mia and I'm a mum of 2 beautiful toddlers, aged 2 and 1 like I said, and I'm also pregnant with baby number 3. So time and efficiency in the kitchen is my number 1 thing at the moment. My husband and I live in a small town here in England and I'm full-time at home with my kiddos, so sharing homemaking and motherhood with you guys is an absolute blessing and I just love it, so keep subscribing for more. The first meal that I am going to share with you is a chickpea and aubergine curry. Now, I share this because I've just been making it over and over again. I mean, I've been making this recipe for years, to be honest, but especially this pregnancy, it's a cheap, healthy way to get that like oily, fatty fix using coconut milk and letting it cook for a little bit. And it's just got a bunch of delicious spices and chickpeas. Oh, it's so tasty. And you can take away spices if your kids prefer without, or you can add more. So before we had kids, I would always do it with chili powder. Since having kids, we've switched to paprika and it just makes it a little bit less spicy. The kids absolutely love it still. And it's just definitely one to have up your sleeve.
Potato!
What's your favourite food?
Potato.
Potato.
It's potato.
Daddy would agree.
Can I have that one in my food?
You like that one specifically?
In my food?
In your food. I'm sure we could figure something out.
Yes.
So the number 1 tip I have for creating cheap meals for your family is to meal plan. And so when you go into your kitchen, before you've even thought about going to the grocery shop, making a list about what you'd like to buy, things like that, go into your kitchen, go through your cupboards, go through your freezer and through your fridge and jot down pretty much everything that you have that can be used in a meal. I'm talking about, so this recipe, for example, was inspired because I had 1 can of chickpeas in my cupboard and I thought, that's not been used, I need to use that, let's make a chickpea and aubergine curry. The good thing about this curry is you can add chicken or just do chicken and chickpea, or just do chicken curry with spinach. You can adapt it as you go. But this is what inspired this meal. So you're going to go into your cupboards and see what you already have. If you've got some peas in the freezer, you can go and make the chicken pot pie that I'm going to be sharing with you soon. Or, you're just going to see what you already have and get through that first and then make your list based on what you have. And only buy one of something to make it even cheaper if you're absolutely on a tight, frugal budget. So for example, buying 1 pepper instead of 5, buying 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 onions instead of a huge pack that you're not going to get through, etc, etc. And that's for that really tight budget season. The trick to this meal is the spices. You don't want to be afraid of the spices. Just put it all into a pestle and mortar or into a little bowl and go for it, really, and have a lot of them. Don't be afraid of using a lot of paprika, a lot of turmeric, a lot of cumin. I'll leave in the description the exact spices that you want for this recipe. But this spice mix is absolutely key and essential, and letting the vegetables fry in the spice mix for a couple of minutes before adding chopped tomatoes. Now you want to let the chopped tomatoes sit in the pan and cook for about 15 minutes, because the chopped tomatoes release a kind of sweet flavour that if you kind of dump and then dump straight in the coconut milk, you're not giving it a chance to kind of release that sweetness, and it almost gives the curry just that little bit of a sugary taste. And so once you've added the spices, add the chopped tomatoes, and then go ahead and let that cook for a bit, then go in with the coconut milk. Another huge tip is you want to let the coconut milk cook. So I will let it cook for as long as I have. If I have 45 minutes before dinner time at the table, then I'll let it cook for that. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes honestly it's 10, just throw it together and move on. But the longer the better, because the coconut milk in the can, when it's been cooked for a long time, it starts to separate. There's like an oily separation that happens, and that is just the most delicious flavour. It feels like you've put a ton of oil in your dish, but you actually haven't. It's so tasty. It's hitting my pregnancy craving in every single way, and oh my goodness, it's like 6 a.m. now, but I could definitely eat it right now. Okay, so if like me, you have a husband or a family that absolutely love roast dinners, then this one is for you. You can do it in a very basic, simple way, or you can add a few little tasty extra steps that I have done for you in this video so you can see what they are, that just make it feel so put together, so tasty, and just a little bit extra. But this is a chicken roast dinner. Now, we obviously kind of would prefer big hunks of beef or lamb and things like that, but that does get quite expensive. So I've really learned to just use the basic whole chicken and try and make it as flavorful as possible. Use it to make a nice gravy and just to embrace the chicken, because later on we're going to be using the leftovers from this chicken, and it's good to be able to use cheaper cuts of meat. Another cut of meat that we did when we were on a super tight budget was gammon. That was one thing that went between the two of us really well, and then we'd use that for sandwiches and stuff the next day and the following days after. But chicken does feel a lot cheaper of an option if you only have access to kind of a grocery store and stuff. I think if you bought it in bulk, or you ordered a cow to put in your freezer, that kind of thing, then it would be cheaper in the long run to do that. But we don't actually have the freezer space, and so this is what works for us right now. A huge tip with this chicken is to cook it on what's called a trivet of vegetables. The reason being is the chicken will cook in the oven and all the juices will be released and put into those vegetables. And we're going to use these vegetables later and add some flour and some stock and some wine and make a little gravy from it. And you've got the trio of vegetables, which is onions, leeks, it's onions, celery and carrots, which is just going to add so much flavour. They work really well together. Throw it in the pan, throw the chicken on top, leave the tops on and all, you don't have to cut fancy, but that's just going to add to our delicious extra yummy bits on top. If you don't have time, you can throw the chicken straight onto a pan, put loads of butter on it and put it in the oven, or you could even cook it in the pressure cooker. So don't worry about how this is done and making it fancy or whatever, but this is just something I like to do just to spice up the dish a bit. An absolute must for making delicious roast potatoes every single time is to part boil the potatoes, add some flour and butter into the mix, and then you're going to put the lid on and shake the pan, once all the water's been drained. And that shaking of the pan is going to release the kind of fluffiness in the potatoes that we're looking for, and the flour on top and the butter, adding some salt. And then what you're going to do, an important step, is having a tray of oil already in the oven, already preheating and already getting nice and hot, pulling out the tray and dumping in the potatoes into that hot oil, and that's going to kind of crisp them quickly, and then putting them back in the oven for about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long you have or how long you want to leave them. I'd have ideally left these potatoes for a little bit longer, but we had some friends coming around, so I just needed to get that going. But that's my tip for just delicious potatoes every single time. Thanks, Mum, for that one. You can also elevate this meal by doing what I did here, is by making a Yorkshire pudding mix. I made this in the morning with eggs, milk, flour and water and some salt, I think. Again, I'll leave it in the description. And letting that sit in the fridge all day, basically, just so it's nice and cold. And then adding the Yorkshire pudding mix into a hot pan and getting those cooking and adding those to the plate. It's just going to, again, elevate, make it feel a little bit more like a proper roast. And then the homemade gravy, you can either just, honestly, you can bun whatever gravy you want on top, but the homemade gravy, again, makes it feel a little bit more elevated. A lot of the time we do have the basic version of this, which is chicken shoved in the oven, greens and potatoes. We don't do any of the faff, we just get it in and get it eaten. The next meal is an absolute favourite of mine and my daughter's as well. She loves this one. And it's using the leftover meat from the chicken the day before. And it's a cheap way of just throwing it in, getting more protein, and it's already cooked, so it's a super fast meal. And you can make it stretch to so many other things. You can put the chicken in a chicken curry or in a chicken fajitas or whatever. You can just stretch that bad boy, which is what we always do. And anyway, this is a family favourite that we can either serve with rice in a pinch, or you can make nice yummy sourdough biscuits on top, which is a fancy way of going about it. And that's my favourite. I really like to add the sourdough biscuits. Or you can serve it with dumplings, and that's definitely my husband's favourite. This is an adaptation of a recipe taken from Farmhouse on Boone, and it uses all the basic vegetables, and buying those basic vegetables are another tip. It's going to make it going to make your food go a long way. Having celery, carrots, onions, potatoes on hand, you can pretty much throw into almost any meal, and it's going to bulk it out, add lots of flavour. They're cheap vegetables to buy because you can even grow them, and that's super cheap. Or you can buy them from a grocery store, and they're some of the cheapest ones. And it just makes it very delicious, makes it feel hearty, it makes you feel full, which for my husband is a very, very important part of his life. once you've added all of your herbs and things to this dish, you want to coat the vegetables in flour and then add some stock. You can either use homemade stock, which I'm going to show you how to make shortly, or you can just use some OXO cubes and pour it in on top. I like to do homemade stock for extra nutritional value, but you can pretty much use whatever. But making sure that you've got the flour in there, which I didn't film, so adding the flour onto the vegetables and then adding the stock is going to create a nice thick base for us to work with.
You like some chocolate?
So I absolutely love making homemade stock for the family. I think my husband thinks it's a bit of a stinky process, but honestly I quite like it. It feels like I'm in an old-fashioned house and the stock's boiling on the stove. But it's so easy, it's very little effort, especially if you have a slow cooker or a pressure cooker or something of that realm. I think pressure cooker works best with stock. You can actually just put it on the stove and let it cook all day if you have that capacity or time, but you're going to get such high nutritional value. There's less salt in it. It's really good for gut health. I add it to when I'm cooking rice or cooking pasta, I add it to that water, add it to my meals as a hot water substitute to kind of thin out some meals. In soups, obviously, just in everything. I love having homemade stock on hand, and it's super easy to make. Quite late now. The kids are actually in bed. We had leftovers and things for dinner tonight, but I'm gonna make this for tomorrow. It's a couscous salad that my mother-in-law makes every barbecue, that kind of thing. It's always amazing. It goes down a treat. It lasts for days. It's so tasty. It's so good, and it's cheap too. So I'm gonna throw this in here as a last minute meal to share with you guys, because we're having a barbecue tomorrow with some friends and they're all coming over straight from church. So I'm going to try and prep this now and share this recipe with you guys, because it's absolutely delicious. Things like chorizo, basil, parsley, couscous, spring onions and peppers, that kind of thing, in some stock. Now my stock isn't quite ready yet, so I'm going to use some previously made stock, and we'll save that stock for tomorrow and the following days. But I'm going to make this couscous salad, and this is probably going to be my favourite one of the whole week because she's good. She's good. Fresh herbs. Fluff it up with a fork. So good. Just how she makes it. The big reveal. This whole week for the meals that I've done, that I've shared with you guys, plus extra milk and nappies and a couple things for the kids and some lunches like bread and ham and cheese, that kind of thing, I have spent a total of £77 plus a couple pennies. And that feels absolutely incredible. That doesn't feel like too much. Normally I think you can spend we spend way over 100 just for a family of 4, and for some reason it was £77. So that felt really good. So I hope you've enjoyed these cheap meals. They're definitely a staple in our family, and especially in the summer months, like the couscous salad and that kind of thing. Really beautiful things to add to side dishes, to meats or vegetables, or even on their own. Simple meals. I hope that you've been inspired. Right now it's getting dark and I need to rest. I'm feeling quite tired and quite pregnant, so time for resting. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.